that I thought that Adam Schiff on day number one gave an extraordinary presentation, laid out the facts, and I did not think he could get better than day number one. His demeanor, he spoke for 2 hours on the first day, a little bit more than 2 hours. And as a public speaker for 37 years, I understand all the nuances of speaking. Your message has got to be on point. It's got to be compelling. It's got to be transitional. It's got to move from place to place. And then you've got to deliver it. Even though it's well written, you've got to deliver it, even with the winking of your eyebrows or the nuances of how you breathe while you're speaking, the contact you make with the audience, and the presentation and projection and the belief in what you're saying. And I have to tell you, one of the things that has made Adam Schiff, while I think he's brilliant, I believe he's Harvard trained, I don't know, he might not be. But the thing that makes Adam Schiff's presentation so compelling and so overwhelming and so powerful, he does have public speaking skills. He's very well organized. It is just a knockdown, drag out, grand slam from moment to moment. But Adam Schiff believes deeply what he is saying. And please make note of this. Those of you who may be Trump lovers or Trump haters or Adam Schiff lovers or Adam Schiff haters, let me say this to you. Adam Schiff knows that Tribulation Trump is a threat to our national security, that he is a demon-possessed individual, that is corrupted, racist, old white men that are racist, that are hate-filled, and that they have sold their souls to a demon who is the servant of Satan. He knows that. He knows the level of evil that is possessed in the Republican McConnell, Lindsey Graham, and all them, John Thune, all them Republican old white men, and then the Japheth men that support Trump. And let me quickly say, when I say white men, it doesn't mean that all. I'm talking about 42% of American Japheth men. Please let it be known that I don't mean to include all Japheth men. And those Japheth or white men that are members of our congregation, I love you, and I know that you love me, and I know that you understand I'm just speaking the truth. I know that you understand that I spoke as strong against Obama and the so-called black man as I'm now speaking against truth. It's just that sometimes when it's in your skin color, it might seem a little personal, but I'm not out to hurt anybody. I'm just telling the truth. Please know that and give me that much of understanding. But Adam Schiff knows that Trump is a threat to our national security. And if he gets away with what he is doing, we don't have America anymore. We don't have an America. You might want to live in Cuba or in Russia or any place, because we have a tyrannical, dictatorial government that you got people like Bill Barr, who lies, who's supposed to be the Attorney General, who lies. And I still would love to see what they're saying out in Pelican Bay, or what they're saying down in Louisiana State Prison, or what they're saying in Rayford, Florida, or in Dannemora, or in Attica prisons across America. What they're saying in Leavenworth about the fact that these old Japheth men are supporting this runaway criminal. Trump is a sick boy. He is a runaway one-man crime wave, and all these old white men are standing with him. It is absolutely, and Adam Schiff, not only is he an orator, not only is an extraordinary, nuanced speaker, not only is he a clear and organized thinker, but he also is speaking from his heart. He's crying out, America. And I'm not a Democrat. I'm not a liberal. I'm not a conservative either, nor a Republican. I'm not an independent. I'm the Lord's servant. Please always know that. I'm on none of these people's side. I'm just telling you. Adam Schiff is speaking from his heart. He's crying out, America, America, we must save ourselves from this demonic, diabolical, pathological, public degenerate. And that's what's so passionate about what he is saying. I've heard people say that his speech over the past couple of days have reached the height of Abraham Lincoln's Gettysburg Address, Martin Luther King, I Have a Dream. And I'm telling you, it is very powerful. I just don't know that the old white men and the old racists and the Trump supporters care. Because remember, it is true, Trump could shoot someone on Fifth Avenue and he would not lose his support. Trump can destroy the Constitution and he will not lose one supporter among the old and the Japheth and the racist people that support him. I've got a couple of clips of Adam Schiff. It's not the best of him, but I wasn't able to get my own segment of it, and I'll redo this at another time if someone doesn't beat me to it. But I want you to listen to Schiff on yesterday as he makes his case about Tribulation Trump's scheme was to cheat in the 2020 election. We know he cheated in the 2016, and that word cheat, he has coined that, not coined it as a phrase, but he has used it so profoundly that lets you know just how dirty Trump is. He's a cheater. He's a cheater. Trump is a cheater. He cheats. He doesn't play fair. He cheats. He cheats. Trump is a cheater. He's a schemer. He doesn't play fair. Trump cheats. Oh man. Man, oh man. Schiff lays this out in ways I tell you, you have to take your hat or your wig off, one of the two. Mr. Engineer, run that segment, I think, number one.
President Trump withheld hundreds of millions of dollars in military aid to a strategic partner at war with Russia to secure foreign help with his reelection. In other words, to cheat. His scheme was undertaken for a simple but corrupt reason: to help him win re-election in 2020. But the effect of his scheme was to undermine our free and fair elections and to put our national security at risk. The president was the key player in the scheme. Everyone was in the loop. He directed the actions of his team. He personally asked a foreign government to investigate his opponent. These facts are not in dispute. Ultimately, the question for you is whether the president's undisputed actions require the removal of the 45th president of the United States from office. I suggest to you today the only conclusion consistent with the facts and law, not just the law, but the Constitution, is clear, as described by a constitutional law expert's testimony before the House. If this conduct is not impeachable, then nothing is. President Trump's abuse of powers of his office undermined the integrity of our free and fair elections and compromised America's national security. If we don't stand up to this peril today, we will write the history of our decline with our own hand. If President Trump is not held to account, we send the message to future presidents, future Congresses, and generations of Americans that the personal interests of the president can fairly take precedent over those of the nation. We have, for generations, been the shining city upon a hill that President Reagan described. America is not just a country, but also an idea. But what worth is that idea if, when tried, we do not affirm the values that underpin it? What will those nascent democracies around the world conclude? That democracy is not only difficult, but maybe that it's too difficult? Maybe that it's impossible? And who will come to fill the void that we leave when the light from that shining city upon a hill is extinguished? If the president was fighting corruption, if he wanted the Europeans to pay more, why would he hide it from us? Why would he hide it from the Ukrainians? Why would he hide it from the rest of the world? Why wouldn't he be proud to tell the Congress of the United States, I'm holding up this aid, and I'm holding it up because I'm worried about corruption? Why wouldn't he? Because, of course, it wasn't true. And we're to believe they felt no pressure? Folks, they're at war. They're at war, and they're being told you're not getting $400 million in aid you need unless you do what the president wants, and what the president wants are these 2 investigations. If you don't believe that's pressure, that's $400 million worth of pressure. You've heard the other counsel say before, well, but they say they don't feel pressure. Like they're going to admit they were being shaken down by the President of the United States. You think they feel pressure now? You should see what kind of pressure they feel if they admitted that. The President's counsel would love you to believe this is just about Ukraine. You don't need to care about Ukraine. Who cares about Ukraine? How many people can find Ukraine on a map? Why should we care about Ukraine? Well, we should care about Ukraine. They're an ally of ours. If it matters to us, we should care about the fact that in 1994, when we asked them to give up their nuclear weapons that they had inherited from the Soviet Union, and they didn't want to give them up, and we were worried about proliferation, we said, hey, if you give them up, which you don't want to do because you're worried the Russians might invade, if you give them up, we will help assure your territorial integrity. We made that commitment. I hope we care about that. I hope we care about that because they did give them up. And you know what? Just what they feared took place. The Russians moved across their border, and they remain occupying part of Ukraine. That's the word of America we gave. And we're breaking that word. Why? For help with a political campaign? Morrison says, Ambassador Sondland related there was no quid pro quo, but there's a quid pro quo. Now, there are notes that show this. There's a written record of this. There's a written record of what President Trump told Ambassador Sondland right after that call. Would you like to see that written record? It's called Ms. Morrison's notes. It's right there for the asking. There's no even plausible, arguable, invented even excuse for withholding these notes. Would you like to see them? In any courtroom in America holding a fair trial, you would want to see contemporaneous notes. This Senate should be no different. Demand those notes. Demand to see the truth. We're not afraid of those notes. We haven't seen them. We haven't seen them. Maybe those notes say something completely different. Maybe those notes say no quid pro quo. Maybe those notes say it's a perfect call. I'd like to see them. I'm willing to trust Ambassador Taylor's testimony and his recollection. I'd like to see them. I'd like to show them to you. They're yours for the asking.
You know, Schiff stated there that America is more than a democracy. It is an idea. I'm sure that phrase is going to be pulled out to live in infamy. But I'll tell you this, that, or live as a prominent and very powerful, poignant statement. Let me remove the infamy. But I would like to add that that when he quoted Ronald Reagan, that America is like a shining city set on a hill. And I'd like to then add my own version. But Trump has turned America into a swampland casino full of bets, prostitutes, and crooked gangsters and gamblers. Is what he has turned the White House, the Congressional Capitol Hill group, and his cabinet administrators are nothing more than a swampland casino. It's what he has turned America into. No longer Ronald Reagan's shining city on a hill. And perhaps someone will pick up on that and recognize that's exactly what he has done to this great republic called America. He's turned it into a casino. What a trifling individual. However, I want to further state that Schiff does believe. I don't know how anybody who calls himself a Trump supporter has not been moved by Schiff. And I think what most people are doing is just trying to turn him off. But the polls are continuing to escalate in terms of people who want to hear witnesses and the number of people, including 48% of the Republicans who want to hear witnesses, and a large number of Republicans, dyed-in-the-wool Republicans, want Tribulation Trump removed from office. There's today and then there's tomorrow more testimony, and the way that Adam Schiff and Nancy Pelosi is laying out this, and I also noticed they're all wearing blue suits, or at least some segment of blue. And of course, you know, if you're going to be on television and you want to be believed, blue is the best color to wear. It's I was watching this woman, Val Demings, who was the Orlando police chief, and I know she keeps coming in with black, and that's okay. It's all right. But if you need a little help in your wardrobe, if you're powerful enough on your own, and Val Demings is a powerful woman, I have to tell you that. I'm not in favor. I don't support her political ideas, God forbid. But I guess she could wear black. But, you know, if you need a little help in the wardrobe, people put on blue. And that's why Tribulation Trump wears red, white, and blue. Every time you see that boy, he's got on a blue suit and a red tie and a white shirt. Those are colors that just cause people to relax and to believe you. A blue suit, a red tie, and a white shirt. Those are the colors of our flag. Those are the colors of Old Glory. And he wears them every day you see him. He's got them on. At any rate, today is day number 2. We'll start again at 1 o'clock, and then there'll be tomorrow, and we'll see what happens from here. I find it appalling that in the last vote on Tuesday night, actually Wednesday morning, that the Republicans rejected the idea that Justice Roberts should help them make a decision about the relevance of a witness, if there are witnesses, or other items or documents or items that are brought up about their relevancy. And they ruled that Judge Roberts should not be given that. That should be left to Mitch McConnell and Tribulation Trump. These are a desperate group of people that, should Trump go down, and he will, that this segment, this 42% of Japheth men, they only have one choice left, is to pick up their AR-15s and start shooting north. That's the only thing, because there'll be no life for them. There'll be no place for Mitch McConnell in the world. There'll be no place for Lindsey Graham. There'll be no place for these cowards. There'll be no place for the likeness. And even though Mitt Romney may vote for witness, he's a stomped down coward and a liar. Same thing with Susan Collins. They may vote for witnesses, but they're spineless liars. They are sick. They're slick snakes is what they are. And there'll be no place in America for them. The only option they'll have left is to pick up their AR-15s and start shooting north. Because otherwise, their lives and the lives of their family, well, perhaps their children would survive. Their lives are over with. And I don't want to break up families. That's not my intent. I'm just pointing out what the polls are saying about women in the Trump Japheth 42% group of people, that the Japheth women are directly and diabolically, but not diabolically, but definitely opposed to Tribulation Trump. As many as 60% of women of educated Japheth women want to see Trump out that office as quickly as they possibly can. I want to let you also listen to Hakeem Jeffries. I don't support his political ideas. I don't support nothing that he does or anybody that he likes. But I think his speaking also is that of passion and belief. Hakeem Jeffries graduated from New York University Law School, magna cum laude. You wouldn't think it, and he doesn't flaunt it, but he did. And to get out of New York University's law school at the top of the class is a pretty powerful position. And he didn't go to work for some major law firm, a clerk for some justice of the Supreme Court. He went to work in Brooklyn. And he's had some things to say as well. I want you to listen to him. In fact, the other day, he used the term stone cold and cold blooded. And yesterday he used the term, now you know, from Biggie Smalls. I don't know if y'all follow rap. I don't, but I'm astute enough to know where he got that from. Anyway, Mr. Engineer, roll clip number 2.
Quid pro quo is a Latin term. It means this for that. Statement that I just read shows that President Zelensky fully understood at the time of this July 25th call that if he yielded to President Trump's demand for phony investigations, he would get the White House meeting in the Oval Office that he desperately sought. This for that.
Or tit for tat.
A very poor performance by a man named Robert Mueller, an incompetent performance. But they say a lot of it started with Ukraine. Whatever you can do, it's a very important that you do it if that's possible. Who is the they referred to by President Trump, putting forth the baseless conspiracy theory that the Ukrainians, not the Russians, were behind the hack of the Democratic National Committee server in 2016? They means Russia. They means Putin. They are enemies of the United States. Not a single witness who testified before the House knew of any factual basis for President Trump's belief in the CrowdStrike Ukraine fairy tale. To the contrary, the U.S. intelligence community and this Senate Intelligence Committee assessed that Russia interfered in the 2016 election. As Dr. Fiona Hill testified, the theory that Ukraine interfered in the 2016 election is, quote, a fictional narrative that has been perpetrated and propagated by the Russian security services. The conspiracy theory that President Trump advanced on the July 25th phone call is stone cold Russian propaganda.
Stone cold. Go ahead, Hakeem. Trump needs to be brought down. I'm not hopeful about seeing an Elizabeth Warren or Joe Biden or Bernie Sanders presidency, or God forbid, even a Pete Buttigieg presidency. You know I'm not praying for that. You know I'm not looking for any of these people to become president. But Trump has to go. He's a racist. He's a dyed-in-the-wool, he's a snake racist. And just because he has sex with black women doesn't mean that somehow he's not a racist. Doesn't because he throws some crumbs to some hungry, incompetent, immoral black preachers and black leaders, just because he throws a couple of crumbs to them doesn't mean he's not a racist. And just because the employment of black people tends to be on the polls going down, and there are fewer black people like African American, so-called Hamites, African American, they're called Hamites, are employed, that Trump has done that. Let me tell you something. Let me talk to you. Don't you Japheth people from the hills of Virginia, West Virginia, and from the swampland of Louisiana, and from every place over the South, you're gonna write to me on the Facebook page and tell me Trump has done more for black people. Let me tell you something, I live in Harlem. You don't know nothing about black folk. There are more black people employed now than ever because of Trump. That's a lie. Come to Harlem. I tell you what, come up here, get yourself a room in a hotel, and I'll walk the streets with you for 3 days with Harlem and let you see, black people don't have better jobs now. They're not doing better now. There are more people living in shelters. And maybe there's somebody working on a part-time job making $2 or $3 an hour that you call being employed. But that's not employed. It's humiliating what's happening. I live in Harlem, and the gall of some of you white people to write to me and tell me that Trump is doing more for black people than anybody else. Hell, I live in Harlem. I mean, you ought to have enough sense to know you don't challenge somebody. I've been black all my life. I live here. I see it every day. I see the poverty. I see the homelessness. I see the food stamp junkies. I see it every day. And you're going to write to me from Oklahoma and tell me something about black folk? You need to go and come again. No, Trump has to be removed. He's got to go. I'm not excited about Bernie Sanders. Joe Biden and his so-called friend Barack, but Trump's got to go. And maybe at some point in time, and the Southern Baptists are finally being exposed for the deep-seated secret racists that they've always been. These Southern Baptists, these evangelicals. The cover has been pulled off of them, and they're as naked as jaybirds. And their racism in the Southern Baptist evangelical movement is as clear as anything that can be clear. Thank God, thank God, thank God. We need to move on. We need to call on Jesus. We need to call on Jesus. This is a bit of a news blog we do, looking at spiritual wickedness in high places for the most part, making some observations about it and giving people a biblical foundation to the way of interpreting, rather than have Sean Hannity or Laura Ingraham or Janine Pirro or Anderson Cooper or Rachel Maddow or Don Lemon, Rush Limbaugh interpret what's going on in the world. You come to me and I'll tell you based on what the Word of God says. They'll just give you their worldly, sinful view. But the Manning Report will tell you what God has said, whether to say yea or nay, whether to go or to stay. You'll be led by the word of Almighty God. Come to the Manning Report on a daily basis to interpret the spiritual wickedness in high places, because there's plenty of it that's going on. And so I'm the Lord's servant, James David Righteous Rebel Manning, and I'm here to serve you with news and information.